Alright people, let me just show you how apps they collect information, or how you see ads. For example, you open your social media and you see ads that pertain to things that you like or your career, but the crazy part is you never said anything about that, nor did you ever mention the phone that you have, but you find that you are seeing ads about your phone. Example, on Facebook. So here is how apps get information. It's all about your privacy. You open apps. Let's start with the same Facebook. Let me just show you something. Okay, here we go. Notifications. Now let's go to permissions. Do you see that? Sometimes default may come all these activated: calendar, camera, contacts, location, microphone, and your entire phone, whereby the app is able to access your whole phone, contacts, everything. Now, this is what I do with all Facebook apps. I come in here and just switch off everything that I don't want the app to access. I leave files and media because I'm constantly uploading pictures. Do you see that? You can say remove permissions if this app isn't used. You can do that. You see that? Let's go back. Permissions, nada. Or it's just media, but all those camera. You see that? In fact, since I don't do calls, I'll just deny this. So at least you have an idea. Okay, no permissions. I'm sure maybe it's just storage for this one. No, because I don't even I didn't set up to download files, so there's no access. Because there are some crazy apps that you would see and you would wonder, why does this app want to access my phone? I mean, it's just a game, but it wants to access contacts, it wants to access camera. For what? Do you see that? So that's how crazy some of these apps are, and why you need to take full control by coming over here and decide what you allow the app to access. Let me show you one crazy app. Some of these apps, the way they are designed is that, let me show you this one. TubeMate. It plays YouTube videos. And check this: location and phone. You cannot turn off location. The moment you turn off location or phone, the app will not work. So it's more like you are forced to leave these open, and you have to choose: either keep using the app or uninstall it. That's the choice you are given. More like you are left with no choice. It's the same thing with the agreements when you are signing up for social media account. They'll give you what you have to read and then say agree or disagree. The moment you click on disagree, you have no choice and you won't be allowed to use their services. So you are literally left with no option. That's the same thing with this app. Why do these want the location? Ads. This app has ads. They will target you with ads depending on your location. If you're in Russia, you'll be seeing Russian ads. If you're in US, you'll be seeing US ads. So this is what these guys have done, this app TubeMate. And you have no choice, literally. This is one other thing I need to show you. When I open websites, I don't allow the website to get cookies. You can see this, and most of the times when you open a website, you see that I don't click on that, because this is what gets you a lot of ads whenever you open a website, because the website is going to get information, everything you open, then they'll know exactly what you like, and you will end up getting a lot of ads. So this, avoid clicking on such things as such. Okay, here we are. Let me show you this. You see what this website they've done? They've put this, the option which is still in here, but at least maybe this one, let's try to say decline. Okay, this one has accepted, but there are other websites that will give you that. Either you accept or you could say go and manage. In managing, they will still leave out some of the checkboxes that you still have to accept. That's the same thing with this one. So such, don't click on, just say decline and then continue browsing. Here is another site. This one, you have no choice. They don't give you a choice. So this site, they don't give you a choice. So this one, it's either take it or leave it. And do you know what I do? All the sites like this, I get out and find the information somewhere else, because what these sites they don't realize is information that someone needs can be found on another site that doesn't offer the nonsensical options to choose cookies or not. Do you see that? They don't realize that. And most of the time I do find sites like that, and what I do, just get out, continue searching on Google until I find a site that doesn't have nonsensical stuff. Oh, great people, I did find what I was looking for. So just to try out of just words, I put this word so that I can just try to see how I can find websites that are troublesome. I did find one for you, and here it is. Check this out. Manage. So they want you to switch on one of those or several. this thing is not showing all the way, but let me just put it in portrait. Yeah, there it is. When I say reject all, it comes back. So meaning you keep going through the same thing over and over until you just have to get out of the site. Get out, find another site, see that? Another site is cleaning. Doesn't care about your privacy. You will get the information that you need. Okay, here we are. But this one is good. Check this out. There is an X here to say you cancel and continue to browse. Do you see that? So just go ahead, find another site, get your business, than sacrificing being bombarded with a lot of ads. That's it, people. Alright, people, let me show you what I do. See this, where is this? Settings. It's not here, it's yeah, right here. Ad blocking. Some website will say there is ad blocking switched off. That's when the website will happen. I ignore that. I just go to another website. Like I said, I have no time to allow snooping around my data. Where is cookies? Alright, right here it's enabled, but if I disable it, some websites, when I try to browse, they'll say cookies are needed. Enable them for you to browse. What do? Just leave, go to another website that will allow me to browse without nonsense. Because all this is for their gain. Why would they be demanding such things? For us, people who use such services, we don't see nor realize what's really going on. The data that you are giving them is a lot. Website whereby they track everything you're doing, more like someone is seated on the other side snooping around in whatever you are doing. You go to this website, they see what you are doing. You go to a banking website doing transactions, they are seeing all the data, how much you did the transaction, what you were doing. They know all that. That is why this technology, though it is good, it is more harmful and more dangerous. When someone can know what you're doing, follow what you're doing, and be able to now give you services, they'll be able to just contact you, and you wonder, where did you get my number? Or how do you know I have this car, or I have that kind of mobile phone? You see that? Someone wants to sell you a service. Where did they know about you? From the same website, mobile phones, mobile apps. That's where the information is caught. Okay, people, here's another crazy one. I received a message on WhatsApp, and this person wants to sell services of Bitcoin. Here's where it all started. See that? Telling me about trading in Forex, and I asked, where did you get my number? The person didn't respond to the question, but went ahead and started telling me about Bitcoin or that. I just ignored. So you wouldn't know. Where would such a person know or get your phone number? I don't have my phone number on social media. I didn't put it there because I do see many people. If you go to someone's about, you'll see their phone number right there, but mine you won't see it there because I didn't put it there. So I don't know where this person got the phone number. It could be the same websites or apps. So that's what I'm talking about. You see that?
Walk over there and sit next to Mr. Johnson and carry my phone. Does Google know that I was sitting here and then I moved over there?
You're welcome anytime, Judge.
Yes or no?
I genuinely don't know without knowing
I'm
what
shocked
services.
you don't know.
Do you or do you not collect identifiers like name, age, and address? Yes or no?
If you're creating an account, yes, and using an account, yes.
Yes. Specific search histories when a person types something into a search bar.
If you have search history turned on, yes.
Device identifiers like IP address or IMEI.
Depending on the situation, we could be collecting it, yes.
GPS signals, Wi-Fi signals, Bluetooth beacons.
You know, would depend on the specifics, but there may be situations, yes.
The GPS, yes.
Yes, if you have
And
location.
voice and conversations when using Google Voice products.
We give an option to turn on or off. And
But if a person didn't know it, voice and conversations when using Google Voice products.
Yes. We only record when they initiated with OK Google and then say the terms after.
Contents of emails and Google documents.
We store the data, but we don't read or look at your Gmail.
But you have access to them.
As a company, we have access to them, yes.
So you could. Saying you don't or don't, I'm not asking do you or don't. I'm saying you could, though there is a possibility.
We have clear established policies on how we would do that data.
And their privacy policies, speaking of that, has changed 28 times, including 8 times since January 2016. So I think the policies, and this is why I'm asking these questions.
There are many things which we don't collect. For example, we don't collect, you could have a product like Google Home, we won't collect conversations unless you specifically ask us to, so you ask a question. And so we definitely are very careful and minimize the data we need to provide the service back to our users.
Why, number one, does Google need all this information? We can answer that in the fact that 86% of your revenue comes from advertising, so we know you manipulate the data in some ways. However, can you explain what you do to minimize this data, which is generally an accepted standard practice among those who collect data?
Our goal is, but we are providing, for example, if we are providing you a service like Gmail, which we have done for 15 years, that data, we need to store it for our users, so they expect us to. So we are trying hard to match users' expectations. We don't need, our data for advertising, as I said earlier, most of it comes from just the keywords you type. And so, we need minimal data to do advertising. We give you options to turn ads personalization off. We store most of the data we do today to help give users the experience they want, and that's what we're trying to do.
Do you believe that Google, has been brought out here in some question, is biased?
Congressman, it's really important to me that we approach our work in an unbiased.
Do you believe that Google is biased? It's either yes or no.
No, not in our approach.
How do you explain this apparent bias on Google's part against conservative points of view, against conservative policies? Is it just the algorithm, or is there more happening there?
Congressman, I understand the frustration at seeing negative news, and I see it on me. On Google, there are times you can search on Google, and page after page there's negative news which we reflect. But what is important here is we use a robust methodology to reflect what is being said about any given topic at any particular time. And we try to do it objectively using a set of rubrics. It is in our interest to make sure we reflect what's happening out there in the best objective manner possible.
This weekend, I was on MSNBC 4 times, and yet the first thing that comes up is the Daily Caller, not exactly a liberal, but I guess well-known group. Then Roll Call, then Breitbart News, then the Memphis Business Journal, then Breitbart News, then Breitbart. So it looks like you are overly using conservative news organizations on your news. And I'd like you to look into the overuse of conservative news organizations to put on liberal people's news on Google. And if you'd let me know about that, I'd appreciate it.
You know, we do get concerns across both sides of the aisle. You know, I can assure you we do this in a neutral way.
Our only witness today is Mr. Sundar Pichai. Mr. Pichai is the Chief Executive Officer of Google.
Chairman Goodlatte, Ranking Member Nadler, distinguished members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to be here today.
More than 90% of all internet searches take place on Google or its subsidiary YouTube, and they are curating what we see. Google has long faced criticism for manipulating search results to censor conservatives. Conservative individuals and organizations have had their pro-Trump content tagged as hate speech or had their content reduced in search results. So what are you going to improve that situation?
Congressman, thanks for the question. If I may, some of the studies you mentioned, we have investigated those. There are other studies which have looked at it. We have found issues with the methodology and the sample size and so on. But let me step back and say, providing users with high quality, accurate, and trusted information is sacrosanct to us. It's what our principles are, and our business interests, our natural long-term incentives are aligned with that. We want to serve users everywhere, and we need to earn their trust in doing so.
Ileana Murillo is Google's head of multicultural marketing. Does Ms. Murillo do good work?
I'm not directly familiar with her work, but she's an employee of Google, and we are proud of our employees.
Your head of multicultural marketing said you were pushing to get out the Latino vote, paying for a ride to the polls for the Latino vote only in key states, and you're saying that's not accurate.
Yes, that's right. We haven't found any evidence to substantiate any.
So she just made it up out of thin air the day after the election and wrote this email to your top executives, and it's not true?
Congressman, I'm happy to follow up, but I think the employees today do their own activities.
We don't want the follow-up. I want the real answers right here in this committee.
As I said earlier, we have looked into it. We didn't find
Did you push to get out the key vote? And I would say the two most populous states for Latinos would be California and Texas. Did you push to get out the Latino vote and pay for people to go to the polls in California and Texas?
We as a company didn't have any effort to push out votes for any particular demographic. That would be against our principles. We participate in the civic process in a nonpartisan way, and we think it's really important we do it that way.
I have an iPhone, and if I move from here and go over there and sit with my Democrat friends, which will make them real nervous, does Google track my movement? Does Google, through this phone, know that I have moved here and moved over to the left? It's either yes or no.
Not by default. There may be a Google service which you've opted into use, and if...
So Google knows that I am moving over there. It's not a trick question. You know, you make $100 million a year, you ought to be able to answer that question. Does Google know through this phone that I am moving over there and sit next to Mr. Johnson, which would make him real nervous? It's his question. It's yes or no.
I wouldn't be able to answer without looking at...
you can't say yes or no.
Without knowing more details, sir.
I have a concern concerning China. In 2010, Google left the Chinese marketplace due to concerns over hacking attacks, censorship, and how the Chinese government was possibly gaining access to data. I'm interested in what has changed since 2010 and how working with the Chinese government to censor research results are part of Google's core values. Do you understand my question?
Congressman, right now there are no plans for us to launch a search product in China. We are, in general, always looking to see how best it's part of our core mission and our principles to try hard to provide users with information. We always have evidence based on every country we have operated in. Us reaching out and giving users to more information has a very positive impact, and we feel that calling. But right now, there are no plans to launch in China. To the extent that we ever approach a decision like that, I will be fully transparent, including with policymakers here, and engage and consult widely.
So anticipating what took place in 2016 happening again, and this is specifically regarding what Russia did to foment racial tensions in the United States, and wanting to know how you are responding to that, where they called for, fake protest, either to get African Americans to turn out to protest something that was fake, or to have white supremacists be ginned up to attack communities of color. So specifically, what is Google doing to respond to that?
We mainly saw, with respect to Russia, limited improper activity on our ad platforms. But in general, we are not a social networking company across the products we do. It's an area we haven't done well as a company. So we typically aren't connecting groups of people, and that's not how Google mainly works today. And so we haven't seen that kind of activities on our platforms. But we are vigilant and, and happy to share any findings which come through as we look into it more.
The operating environment in China has deteriorated with respect to surveillance, censorship, and the like since Google first made the decision in 2010 to leave. So I want to ask very specifically, are any employees currently having product meetings on this Chinese project? And if not, when did those end?
We have undertaken an internal effort, but right now there are no plans to launch a search service in China, as I said earlier.
Are there any current discussions with any member of the Chinese government on launching this app?
Currently, we are not in discussions around launching a search product in China.
Are there any current discussions with members of the Chinese government about this?
This effort currently is an internal effort, and I'm happy to, consult as well as be transparent to the extent we take steps towards launching a product in China.
And who at Google is leading the Dragonfly effort?
It's our efforts around building search. It's undertaken by our search teams, but these are distributed efforts. It's a limited effort internally currently.
Will you, Mr. Pichai, rule out launching a tool for surveillance and censorship in China while you are CEO of Google?
Congressman, I commit to engaging. One of the things which is important to us as a company, we have a stated mission of providing users with information. And so we think it's in our duty to explore possibilities to give users access to information. And, I have that commitment, but, as I said earlier on this, we'll be very thoughtful and we will engage widely as we make progress.
This is now the fourth hearing in a series of ridiculous hearings on the free speech of internet companies. A significant portion of this hearing was a waste of time because the First Amendment protects private individuals and corporations' free speech rights. So I'm going to search for Congressman Steve King. I'm going to hit the News tab. First article that pops up is from ABC News. It says, Steve King's racist immigration talk prompts calls for congressional censure. That's a negative article. But you don't have a group of people at Google sitting there thinking and trying to modify search results. Every time Steve King comes up, a negative article appears. That's not what's happening, right?
We always operate for any query with the same set of principles. We are trying to reflect what is currently, if it is newsworthy, what is currently being discussed about that phrase.
Thank you. So let me just conclude here by stating the obvious. If you want positive search results, do positive things. If you don't want negative search results, don't do negative things. And to some of my colleagues across the aisle, if you're getting bad press articles and bad search results, don't blame Google or Facebook or Twitter. Consider blaming yourself.
Did Google design a prototype for a search engine that could be used in China to censor content?
Congressman, we have undertaken an internal effort.
Did you create a prototype? There was a report in The Intercept that says a prototype for the censored search engine was designed.
We have developed and explored what search could look like if it were to be launched in a country like China, and that's what we explored. And
how many months was that project ongoing?
We've had the project underway for a while, and there have been other projects which we have undertaken for a while, and we've never launched them too. So we are constantly exploring.
How many people were working on it?
The estimates, the number of engineers on the project have varied over time. At one point, we have had over 100 people working on it, it's my understanding.
Who makes the judgment calls regarding content moderation at Google?
Chairman, it depends on the area. So, for example, if it's YouTube, we have, very clear teams which are responsible for YouTube content policies. And
are they identified? Is it possible for a customer to write to them and say, hey, here's a concern I have?
We give clear channels for content creators to, to raise concerns back, and we have clear avenues. And we also have had people who are responsible for these platforms, including content moderation, appear here, and I think they've consulted widely here too.
Thank you. Well, you've gone for about 3.5 hours, and it's about what we predicted, isn't it, yesterday when we talked? So we thank you very much for your participation today. This concludes today's hearing, and without objection, all members will have 5 legislative days to submit written questions for the witness or additional materials for the record. And with that, this hearing is adjourned.
Once your phone is hacked, what is in their hands is not simply your device, it is your future. They're selling our future, they're selling our past, they are selling our history, our identity, and ultimately, they are stealing our power. The screen may be off as it's sitting on your desk, but the device is talking all of the time. The question we have to ask is, who is it talking to? If I get a smartphone and I need to use a phone, I actually open it up before I use it. Anything you can do on that device, the attacker, in this case the government, can do. Before 2013, if you said there's a system that's watching everything you do, the government is collecting records of every phone call in the United States, even for those people who are not suspected of any crime, it was a conspiracy. Yes, there were some people who believed it was happening. Yes, there were academics who could say this was technically possible. The world of 2013, some suspected that this was happening. The world after 2013, we know that it's happening. The distance between speculation and fact is everything in a democracy. We have now had the first European regulations that are trying to limit the amount of data that can be collected secretly and used against populations broadly. And we have also seen the basic structure of the internet itself change in response to this understanding that the network path that all of our communications cross, when you request a website, when you send a text message, when you read an email, for so long those communications have been electronically naked or unencrypted. Before 2013, more than half the world's internet communications were unencrypted. Now, far more than half are, measured by just web traffic from one of the world's leading browsers, the Google Chrome browser. The entire world has changed in the last few years. It hasn't gone far enough. The problems still exist. And in some ways, they've gotten worse. But we have made progress that would not have been possible if we didn't know what was going on. Hacking has increasingly become what governments consider a legitimate investigative tool. They use the same methods and techniques as criminal hackers. And what this means is they will try to remotely take over your device. Once they do this, by detecting a vulnerability in the software that your device runs, such as Apple's iOS or Microsoft Windows, they can craft a special kind of attack code called an exploit. They then launch this exploit at the vulnerability on your device, which allows them to take total control of that device. Anything you can do on that device, the attacker, in this case the government, can do. They can read your email, they can collect every document, they can look at your contact book, they can turn the location services on, they can see anything that is on that phone instantly and send it back home to the mothership. They can do the same with laptops. The other prong that we forget so frequently is that in many cases they don't need to hack our devices. They can simply ask Google for a copy of our email box because Google saves a copy of that. Everything that you ever typed into that search box, Google has a copy of. Every private message that you've sent on Facebook, every link that you've clicked, everything that you've liked, they keep a permanent record of. And all of these things are available not just to these companies, but to our governments as they are increasingly deputized as sort of miniature arms of government.
What about enabling your microphone camera?
If you can do it, they can do it. It is trivial to remotely turn on your microphone or to activate your camera so long as you have systems-level access. If you had hacked someone's device remotely, anything they can do, you can do. They can look up your nose, right? They can record what's in the room. The screen may be off as it's sitting on your desk, but the device is talking all of the time. The question we have to ask is, who is it talking to? Even if your phone is not hacked, right now, you look at it, it's just sitting there on the charger. It is talking tens or hundreds or thousands of times a minute to any number of different companies who have apps installed on your phone. It looks like it's off, it looks like it's just sitting there, but it is constantly chattering. And unfortunately, like pollution, we have not created the tools that are necessary for ordinary people to be able to see this activity. And it is the invisibility of it that makes it so popular and common and attractive for these companies. Because if you do not realize they're collecting this data from you, this very private and personal data, there's no way you're going to object to it. Once your phone is hacked, what is in their hands is not simply your device, it is your future. But we see how these same technologies are being applied to create what they call the social credit system. If any of your activities online, if your purchases, if your associations, if your friends are in any way different from what the government or the powers that be of the moment would like them to be, you're no longer able to purchase train tickets. You're no longer able to board an airplane. You may not be able to get a passport. You may not be eligible for a job. You might not be able to work for the government. All of these things are increasingly being created and programmed and decided by algorithms. And those algorithms are fueled by precisely the innocent data that our devices are creating all of the time, constantly, invisibly, quietly, right now. Our devices are casting all of these records that we do not see being created, that in aggregate seem very innocent. You were at Starbucks at this time. You went to the hospital afterwards. You spent a long time at the hospital. After you left the hospital, you made a phone call. You made a phone call to your mother. You talked to her until the middle of the night. The hospital was an oncology clinic. Even if you can't see the content of these communications, the activity records, what the government calls metadata, which they argue they do not need a warrant to collect, tells the whole story. And these activity records are being created and shared and collected and intercepted constantly by companies and governments. And ultimately it means as they sell these, as they trade these, as they make their businesses on the backs of these records, what they are selling is not information. What they're selling is us. They're selling our future. They're selling our past. They are selling our history, our identity, and ultimately, they are stealing our power and making our stories work for them. If I get a smartphone and I need to use a phone, I actually open it up before I use it. I perform a kind of surgery on it to physically desolder or sort of melt the metal connections that hold the microphone on the phone. And I physically take this off. I remove the camera for the phone, and then I close it back up, I seal it up. And then if I need to make a phone call, I will attach an external microphone on it. And this is just so if the phone is sitting there and I'm not making a call, it cannot hear me. Now, this is extreme. Most people do not need this. But for me, it's about being able to trust our technology. My phone could still be hacked. My laptop could still be hacked. And just as I told you before, the same principles apply to me. If it is hacked, they can do anything to the device that I can do. So my trust in technology is limited. The instrumentalities were the tools that were used, right? Like if you used dynamite or a crowbar or a getaway car, they could seize all of those things. But the idea that the cops can get everything, the idea that the FBI can get all these records, you know, all of these things, your whole history, is very much a new thing. And nobody talks about that today. We just presume it's normal. We presume it's okay. But between 1967 and today, think about how many more records there are about your life and how things, like how you live, private things about you that have nothing to do with criminality and everything to do with the intimacy of who you are. And the fact that all of that now today is exposed, and not just to, let's say you love the U.S. government. Let's say you are like throwing cookouts for your local police department, but every other government in the world too. And we really need to ask ourselves, how much information do the authorities of the day need to do their job? Right? How much do we want them to have? How much is proper and appropriately and necessary? And how much is too much? And if we decide the cops shouldn't have this, if we decide the spies shouldn't have this, well, why in the hell should Facebook or Google or somebody trying to sell you Nikes, why should they have this?